The first suicide that I heard of was a white girl. Her last name was White, and she lived up on an affluent section of the area that I come from. And she was probably 19 at the time. And she was kind of quiet. I think she wrote a lot in her notebook, and she wrote really small. I mean, like, she could do her homework in a section this big on her notebook paper. I mean, she was always, seemed happy. People liked her. She was always smiling and, seemed content. And for her to go in a closet and blow her head off is severe, because, it's a shocker. You don't see that coming.
Probably the main thing has been talking to people, not just people that are biased one way or the other, but neutral people. It's like yesterday I went to Lexington to speak to one of my old admissions counselors at Spencerian, and we sat and talked for 8 hours. I met somebody and started to actually try to deal with something that I'd been trying not to deal with for about 12 years. And then things got a little more serious than I had expected. Actually, a lot more serious than I had expected. And at the time, I wasn't ready to deal with it. And so I started sort of a downhill spiral. Everything started to get to me.
And I don't know what makes life unlivable. Perhaps it's just a lack of economic opportunities, a lack of educational opportunities. But it seems like there should be a way to curb it. And I think it takes a huge outpouring from the community.
The main thing has been talking to people. Yesterday I went to Lexington to speak to one of my old admissions counselors at Spencerian, and she actually gave advice and stuff that really helped a lot. And just simple things like that's what helps. I mean, nobody's perfect, and no one person is going to be able to help you through it. You have to have a support base, and I think finding that's what helped me through it.
Here in southeastern Kentucky, we have a culture that values being humble, not being prideful or haughty or getting above your raisin. So in our culture, it's highly valued to be somewhat passive and to not be too confrontational. That's not the way we do it around here. We kind of don't confront people too much, and we try to respect the other person's feelings a lot. We try not to use the word no in a real harsh way. Now, if we were up in New England or in a big city, it would be much more appropriate. Across the country, the South is the area that's having an increasing rate of suicide in the last few years. And southwestern Virginia and part of eastern Kentucky were fairly heavy in terms of high suicide rates. So that happens to actually overlay the area that's has the epidemic of OxyContin, and also the area that's economically somewhat strapped, a lot of unemployment, that sort of thing. So I think it stands to reason that there's some connection.
I honestly think that it's the lack of a livable life. I mean, as hard as you want to try here, unless you start out for money, it's very, very difficult to end up in a place where you can be comfortable living your life here financially. Other ways, this place is rich beyond imagination. When these suicides and stuff started really happening a lot together about 6 years ago to people that I really cared about, I sat down with a notebook in 10 minutes and I wrote something down, and for me this explains This, you know, it doesn't explain anything, but it's kind of my, you know, inside thought about it. I tried to hold your tear, but it fell from my thumb. I realized there's no more room for shoulda-dones. Reached out to you, you pulled away. Born into a place that tore away. Felt a lonely place and reached for a light to turn it off. In the dark and in the ground. Can't allow the way it's done to stop you now. Rocks are sinking in the Sunday sun and flowers are wilting on a body of one. People point fingers and whisper lies, sneers on the faces of their alibis. Another rock breaks loose and rolls to the ground. A lonely bird jumps into flight without a sound. You can't nurture broken shells when what was inside seeped on down.
I actually thought of it as being the best way for everybody else. Because a lot of people, like my mom, for example, if I actually came out and told her, she would be devastated. And a lot of things have happened since August that I can't tell her, that I actually haven't told very many people at all. And those that I have told, when I do tell them, they usually act like, okay, you're sick, I don't want to know this. And the two friends that I had here on campus, instead of, they each had a lot of stuff on their own they had to deal with. She always said that meeting me changed her life, and I usually took it as it made it worse. And I just got to the point that I thought if no one had met me, they would be better off.
My church, as far as the whole gay thing, the common statement of better dead than gay, yeah, that was pretty prevalent in my mind. Because after I actually started trying to deal with it, I would go to church and then I would come back and I was miserable. I would come in the room and I would have a look of death on my face. Because I felt so out of place there, and knowing how people, although they say they don't judge, quite a few do, I just knew that even if something came out like that, even if it's the truth, then I would be in a lot of trouble. So when I actually started thinking about it, my theory was, well, I'm going to hell anyway, so why not just get there sooner?
We were horrified with these, these suicides. And if it was just one incident, we can kind of get over it. But it seems like they just hammer one after another. And these are young, intelligent, smart, good-hearted kids that put a gun to their heads. But it's hard. It leaves a hole where there used to be a laughing human being, that you grew up with. There's a hole there, and you can't fill that. There's nothing to fill that hole with. There's a stone laying in a cemetery with some plastic flowers on it where their life could have been.
When you interview people, you see this, you get this picture of this person, that's real lively, doing everything, and then all of a sudden they're a victim of a suicide. It's a person that when they're around someone, they project a different image than what they really feel inside. I have did several investigations that way that you couldn't find out any negative. This person had every reason to live, and they took their own life.
Richard Corey by Edwin Arlington Robinson. Whenever Richard Corey went downtown, we people on the pavement looked at him. He was a gentleman from soul to crown, clean-favored and imperially slim. And he was always quietly arrayed, and he was always human when he talked. But still he fluttered pulses when he said, "Good morning," and he glittered when he walked. And he was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace. In fine, we thought that he was everything to make us wish that we were in his place. So on we worked and waited for the light, and went without meat and cursed the bread. And Richard Cory, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet in his head. For the most part, people saw me as just everyday college student. They thought I was pretty much perfect. What they don't see is what actually goes on in my head and behind closed doors. For the most part, I put on a happy face for as long as I could.
We do need to be open-minded, look beyond the surface, realize that as complex and complicated as our own lives are and our own thoughts are, that's true for everybody else. And that nobody's life is perfect, and it never will be, and that from time to time everybody's life gets more complicated than it was sometime before that.
I've had a number of people that when you actually try to talk to them, they're so self-centered that other people's problems go in one ear and out the other, even though they try to put on the appearance that they try to help.
I think that family members and friends have to look at having real relationships, genuine relationships in which they are open to hearing the bad as well as the good.
Both of the people that I talked to here on campus had said that they were here regardless. But as time has shown, they've not been.
When I actually need somebody to talk to and I actually ask for help, if they don't try to help, it does bother me.
I think a lot more people think about it at some point in their life than actually do it. And what usually stands in between is probably friends and family, you know. Or it could be a chance encounter with a stranger that that makes them realize that yes, life is precious and that there's only one of them, and you know, maybe they were here for a reason.
Never said there wouldn't be trials, never said I wouldn't fall, never said that everything would go the way I wanted to go. But when my back is against the wall and I feel all hope is gone, I just lift my head up to the sky and say, help me to be strong. Oh, I just can't give up now. Come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe he's brought me this far to leave me.
Just taking the time to sit down with someone and give them some of your attention is probably one of the best ways you can show them that you care about them. Suicide is never a good option. There's always someone who cares about you. There's always someone who loves you. There's always at least one person who wants you to stay alive. And for anyone who's thinking about suicide, I would encourage them to go and talk with someone else. And even if that first person they talk to doesn't give them the answer they want, to keep talking to someone else and to keep reaching out and to never give up, because there is always hope, and suicide is never a good option, and it doesn't have to be the only option.
So it's just got to be people sticking together and talking about it. And hopefully, if we can bring out of 10 people that are thinking about suicide today, if we can reach 4 of those and change one of them, then that's progress. That's one person that can have a life and a family and an opportunity.
One thing about suicide, even if it seems right at the time, don't do it, because once you get past it, you realize there's so much more to live for. Now, after being close to doing it, I know that it's not the right thing for me to do. So I had to get myself to the point that I wanted to do something. Whether it's be a psychologist and try to help other people not want to commit suicide, then that's what I would do. Or to be in nursing or something else. I mean, you can help people in any field that you're in. You can be something, but you can't be something if you're dead.
You know, my first thought was to say that it's a waste, but then we have to look beyond that and see that, you know, that maybe they didn't die for nothing. Maybe we can, you know, learn from that. So in one word, hope.
Even when I can't see clearly, I know that you are with me, so I just can't give up now. Come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe He's brought me this far to leave me.